Hey, everybody, and welcome to Lux Digital Church. My name is Mark. I'm the pastor here at Lux. I just want to let you know that we're so happy and glad to have you here with us. And man, I'm just looking. I mean, I can see your chat the whole time, and so I'm looking at a lot of the things that are going on. Hey, Gibby, how are you? Bougie got the amen in there in chat, and it's really good to see that coming up. We're trying to get affiliate here on the channel. We just need to do some extra streams so we can actually give you some amen emojis. So you can actually use them here in the chat. Text Colden and Janny and Baggy Man and Gray Hood, all of you with the amens in chat. Thank you guys for saying that. Appreciate you all being here tonight. I just want to say, guys, we're so thankful to have you here tonight with us, especially if you're here for the first time. If you've never joined us before and this is your first time here, I just want to say thanks for coming and joining us tonight. When you feel comfortable, drop a follow here on the stream or say hello in chat, as we just want to say thank you for being here, Star Fox. I see you there as well. And if you're joining us later over VOD or over podcast or over YouTube, I'm going to be doing my best to interact with our actual live chat here on stream. And so if you're wondering who I'm talking to while I'm preaching and you're listening in later, well, then you have to come back and join us live next week. We're live every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. EST at twitch.tv/Lux Digital Church. And although we love that you join us on demand and we consider you a part of our family, we would love to have you come and join us live as well. Jen says beard is no more. That's my wife. She's very happy that for Valentine's Day this year, the beard went away. Primrose, it's good to see you. Welcome to the stream today. I'm glad that you're here with us. And I did shave into a mustache this week, guys. So you might have missed out on that, but there was a mustache. And if you want to see the mustache, you have to go hit !Discord and come join us in Discord and scroll up in general chat, because there was a mustache this week, and now it's gone. Bring back the stash. If I want a wife and family, I don't have a mustache. That's kind of one of my rules in life, so I just can't have it. Anyway, guys, we're so glad to have everybody here with us tonight. We're currently in a series here at Lux called Greater Than, and in that series, we have been going over some of the mission, vision, and values of our church, and kind of like, what do those things mean, not just to us as an organization and understanding of like who we are and where we're going, but then also like, what does that mean to each of us individually? Because it's one thing to sort of be aligned with a group of people or an organization or a company and say like, I support what you're doing. It's very different to say that I want to live out those values and those principles that we, exemplify as an organization or as a group. I want to live those out in my day-to-day life. But the truth is that we actually have to, live those things out if we want that to be part of the larger group and body of us. We each need to be living out these things individually. And so we've been talking about the different vision and values that we have here at Lux. And actually, we didn't have these before. We had sort of like a little bit of a key statement, especially if you're joining me new tonight. I want to catch you up just a little bit. But back in November, my wife and I, we started our church in March of last year. So we're approaching, guys, we're like 30 days, about 30 days from a little over that, from our 1 year anniversary as a church, which is really exciting. From our very first service, I can't believe we're almost 1 year into this. So much has changed over the last year. We're going to talk a little bit about that next week. But back in November, Jen and I got invited to go to Florida to spend some time with a group called Stadia and Intentional Churches, two different organizations. And while we were there, they really helped us drill down on who we were and what we believed and what we were about. And I had a general idea about a lot of those things before we launched Lux, but I really wanted to make sure that we communicated those things really clearly. And you might be asking yourself, like, why talk about ourselves that much? Like, and honestly, like, I'll be real with you guys. Like, I was sort of having that same exact problem. Someone slow time down. It can't be a year already. It's wild, Stormbrave. It is wild that it's already been a year that we've been doing church. It's crazy to me. So as I was writing the messages for this collection of talks, I was sort of convicted about like, why are we actually spending? Is this really the right time to be going so deep and intentional in mission, vision, and values? And I think it is. And I think there's two primary reasons for that. I now nominate that it gets called Lux Day. I'll just send it into the government and ask for a national holiday. Okay, Gray Hood. I hope that we can do that. Anyway, I think that there's two reasons. And the first one is the key statement for this series, or the statement that we're going with that links all of our messages together. It's this: to get where you want to go, you have to know who you are. To get to where you want to go, you have to know who you are. And we've always had a good idea about who we were, but mission and values really helps you to sort of do more than just establish a sort of like what we would like to be. And it helps to put some concrete thought and ideas behind who you actually are, because our mission and our values ultimately are the thing that shape our direction, and they shape our culture as a church. And our culture is very unique. Now, this doesn't mean that our culture is linear or exclusive. This doesn't mean that there aren't room for other passions and ideas and thoughts to sprout up and come out of our vision as a church to reach people inside the gaming community. And by the way, our mission statement here at the church, which we went over 2 weeks ago, is a light for every dark place. And so in that, there's lots of room for variation and giftedness and passions to become part of our church, no matter who you are. If you feel like you have a passion, as long as that passion aligns with being the light of Jesus in either the dark spiritual, personal, or external places of the world, like, we're 100% in on that. Which Wednesday is the Easter service? Lima asks. Lima, it's going to be the Wednesday right before Easter. Someone else can check the date on that and get exactly what that is, but I think it's about the 14th of April, I believe. And so as I was going through this, I was reminded of something, and that is my pastor, a good friend of mine, and my spiritual mentor and father, has said, he says this all the time, but he says division, the word division, literally means to die visions, two visions. And so when there's a group of people and there's two different visions about where they're supposed to go or what they're supposed to be, there always comes a point of division. The reason is very simple. You can't be in two places at once. If I was to like leave here and jump in my car and I decided that I wanted to arrive in two different places simultaneously, it would be impossible for me. My car and me as a person couldn't split. If after church tonight, me and Sheebs jumped in a car and we decided we were going to drive simultaneously to my parents' and his parents' house, we couldn't arrive in both places at the same time. Now, a lot of times people drive in the same general direction. Let's say I'm going to go to your place on the way to my place, but eventually there's a fork in the road where we're forced to go two different ways. And when vision and values are not clear, there's always room for division, because there's always room for multiple visions. And this is something I've noticed across the church in the last decade that I've worked in it, but also just in the last year at Lux, because I haven't been terribly clear about what our vision is. And honestly, because I was still working and figuring that out in the first 6-9 months of our church's life. I was still working at figuring that out. There were more than one vision sometimes. There is different people who would come into the church who maybe had a slightly differing vision, right? They came in and they were really looking for a place where, they could just kind of find other Christians and hang out with them and play video games with them. And then that's good. And there's Christian servers like that, and there's great discords, and I can even point you in the direction. But our mission is to reach the lost. Our mission is to be a light for every dark place. Our values are 1 is greater than 99, which means that we highlight the needs of the one lost person inside of our community over our desire to feel comfortable and hang out with people who think like us, believe like us, and vote like us. And so it became really clear to me early on that we really needed a series that was going to set the tone for the vision and the direction and the values of our community together. Because if we don't, inevitably, there will be more than one vision, which always causes division. The other reason is this, and it's simple, but it's really important. It's this: we don't invest in things we don't trust. We don't invest in things we don't trust. When you don't trust something, you always have one of two reactions. Always. It's one or the other. When you don't trust something, you always either attempt to control that thing, or you disengage from that thing because you don't feel like you can trust it, right? Let me give you a couple of examples, and you can probably think of some in your own life, and you should, because this is going to be one of the things I'm going to ask you to post in chat tonight. So I have a dog, And it's common knowledge that my dog isn't my favorite thing on the planet. But I don't really trust my dog because my dog runs. If you let my dog, whose name is Willow, outside the back door of our house, and some poor sap comes walking down the street, my dog will run at them as though the dog is going to kill that person. I can't trust 90% of Mountain Dew flavors, Gibbles and Bits said. 100%, bro. I can't trust like 99% of Mountain Dew flavors. Anyway, so if you let my dog out, she's going to run and she's going to bite somebody or she's going to just scare somebody. She's scared people many times. You can only get her back in the house if you yell the word treat loud enough out the door, and it's really annoying. And so because I can't trust her to go out on her own, I control her by putting her on a lead. So there's a cable that's connected to, a firm metal pole in right outside my back house that holds up our carport, and I connect that to my dog's collar. I control what I can't trust. Now, I don't check in on my bank every day, and I don't pull my money from my bank. Why? Because I've learned that I can trust my bank with my money. Whether I should or I shouldn't is beside the point. But I have learned somewhere in my brain, it's told me that I can trust the institution of my bank with my money. So I don't disengage from my bank. And this comes out in like everybody's life. Think about this. When you feel like you can't trust your spouse, you attempt to control your spouse. You want to be able to make sure that you're safe inside of the relationship. So when you feel like you can't trust, you control. When you have somebody who you've asked to do something, let's say you have someone on your team at work, you've asked them to do something and they've proven to be unreliable. They say they'll do it, but they never follow it through. Well, you do one of two things. Either you begin pestering them because they're on your team and you need to get the work done, and so you're always checking up on them and you're always sort of nagging at them to get the job done because you're trying to control them, or you disengage and you quit asking them to do things. Because we always have one of two reactions with people or organizations or anything that we feel like we can't trust. We either try to control it or we choose to disengage from it. When your car keeps breaking down, either you try to control it by taking it to the shop and making sure you get everything fixed, or you disengage from it by selling it or scrapping it because you feel like you can't trust your vehicle to get you from point A to point B. Well, that's true of organizations as well. And you really can't trust an organization or a group of people until you have some sort of an idea what they believe and what they're about. What are their convictions? Like, what are their values? What do they really orient their life around? And I just knew, I know that you, as someone who's watching us online, right? It's one thing if you could sort of show up at my house, right? Or at my church and shake my hand and look me in the eye. But in an online church, let's just get real. It's super hard to trust somebody. It's super hard to believe that that person isn't a snake oil salesman. We're actually going to talk about that tonight. It's super hard to believe that you can actually get behind somebody who you meet over the internet. So I wanted you to know who we are and what we stand for. Because it's hard to give your time and your energy or your money or your resources or your talents to a group of people or an organization or a culture that you don't know if you can trust. You have to be able to trust so you don't feel like you have to control or to disengage. Both of those things are important. So here's a way that you can be involved in tonight's message. If you feel like that resonated with you, the first time I heard the concept of you control what you don't trust and you don't control what you do trust, it was mind-blowing to me. I immediately began thinking about people in my life who I felt, you ever get that feeling like that somebody's trying to control you? I don't know if you've ever had that before, but you're just put a 5 in chat if you've ever had that before, where you just you get this sick feeling in your stomach that someone's trying to manipulate you and control you. I get it every time I'm on the phone with somebody from not a sales office, but a call center. I feel like I'm being manipulated, right? It just drives me insane. And why? Well, it helped me to realize that every time I feel like someone's trying to control me, it's because they don't trust me. And either it's because I've broken trust and I'm not deserving of trust inside the relationship, or it's because of some situation that they've had in their past that has taught them that they can't trust either people like me or situations like the one that we're in. So how does this impact your life? How does this impact your life? How do you look at this and say, where are the areas in my life where I'm trying to control something that I don't trust entirely? If you don't mind, share that in chat. How does, and you don't have to, you don't feel comfortable with it. I know it's a pretty personal question. It doesn't have to be super deep. But if you have an area in your life where it's just man, I really feel like I am controlling this, or I definitely realize that here's someone who's trying to control me and I'm now realizing that it's because they don't trust me. I think it's a really good thing to begin thinking about. That is just a moment to share the good news that call center rep. Yes, just a perfect opportunity to tell the call center rep about Jesus. It's a perfect opportunity, or invite them to Lux Digital Church. So after Jen and I came back from Florida, and we looked into 2022, we really believed that God was opening doors to something new. Now, before, I had really firmly believed that 2022 is going to be another sort of establishing year, a year where we're going to be setting down roots and learning the systems and the processes. We were going to be meeting people and building relationships. But God began to open doors and open our eyes to the fact that 2022 was supposed to be a year of growth and development. It was supposed to be a year where we were going to see a rich harvest come into our church family. And to be honest with you, that made me kind of uncomfortable, because I was preparing myself for a year that was a little bit slow and steady growth, sort of working our way through and learning as we went. And when God began to open doors and open mine and my wife's eyes to realize that God was preparing us for a season of significant growth and harvest, I just knew in that time, like, we have to really communicate with our church family about what we believe and about who we are. And not only that, like, we got to get people ready. Because there's no point in the Bible where Jesus leaves the disciples and he gathers his closest friends together and he says, now, when I go up to heaven, I want you to go out into the world, go to the ends of the earth, and I want you to go and make churches. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say, I want you to go and make converts. He doesn't say, I want you to go and start services. He doesn't say, I want you to go and sing worship songs. He doesn't say, I want you to go and preach sermons. He says, I want you to go and make disciples. And I knew that if God was going to be sending us an influx of new people, I knew the only way that we could actually receive those new people is if we were prepared to disciple them. Because the church at its core is a community of people who are devoted not only to Jesus, but also to raising up other people and discipling them in all of the ways and the teachings of Jesus. That's the purpose and the heart of the church. That's why we gather together. It's to live like Jesus and to come alongside other people and encourage them to live like Jesus with us. And so when we felt God really opened a door and said, we want you, we believe God said, you're going to see 100 people at Easter of 2022. I was a little blown away, and I don't know if it'll happen. Maybe there'll be 25 people here at Easter of 2022. I don't know. But I did know this, that we needed to be prepared in case there was. That if God was going in that direction, that we needed to establish a base, which is why the Rhythm series was all about establishing sort of a spiritual boot camp to get us spiritually fit and ready and growing for what God had next, which is why this series establishes who we are and what we believe and what we live by, so that we're ready and unified, so that we don't have multiple visions going all sorts of directions when new people do come in and start to embrace Jesus and need discipled inside of our community. And the next series, The One is Greater Than 99, is all about how we get to actually play a part, not just in the growth of the church, but in the development of faith and the evangelism of the nations. That we get to identify our one and build a relationship with our one, not so it's a notch on our belt, but so that people would come to know Jesus. All of that builds up to Easter of 2022, which we believe God is preparing to open some doors and to do some new and some big things. So, 2 weeks ago, we looked at our mission statement, a light for every dark place. Last week, we looked at our core value. The first one is greater than 99. This week, we look at our second value, rhythm is greater than religion. Now, we just came out of a series called Rhythms, and yes, that series was named after this core value, and we didn't tell you that, but I knew that going into it because the core values were crafted back in November. But before we look at what that might mean for you and me, let's take a quick look at a passage in the Bible. It's a story about Jesus, and it's written down by one of his good friends, the Apostle Mark. We're going to find this story in Mark chapter 3, starting in verse 1 and going through verse 6. It says this: Another time Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." Then Jesus asked them, "Which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they remained silent. He, Jesus, looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn arts, said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." He stretched it out, and his hand was completely restored. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. There's a lot of things in this passage that we could talk about, but let's just start by breaking it down. Jesus is gathered once again with a group of religious leaders in a local synagogue. Synagogue was most likely the synagogue in Capernaum. Capernaum was a small fishing village off the Sea of Galilee, a handful of hours walk north of the city of Jerusalem. Jerusalem itself was sort of the cultural, religious, and legal sort of center of the Jewish world. And the Pharisees that are here with him gathered around likely came from the south. Why? Because Jesus was doing miraculous and crazy things. There was healings that were happening. There were people who were demon possessed who were seeing freedom from the demonic spirits that were possessing and oppressing them. There was all sorts of things that were happening. And word had spread very quickly a whole way down to Jerusalem about what was going on. And so the Pharisees, which are kind of like they're almost like a peasant class of like super religious, pious people. And so in Jewish culture, you had a handful of different factions that sort of led the nation. The Sadducees were sort of like religious lawyers, but the law of the Bible, so religious law was also the law of the nation. So they were also religious figureheads as well. The Pharisees were not of sort of that sort of like social upper crust, but they were extremely pious. They obeyed the law very, 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 very closely. And so they came up and they gathered around Jesus in Capernaum basically to see if he was the real deal. And so they would come and they would bring a lot of questions to him and they would watch what he would do. But the important part is that they're gathered on the Sabbath. And you might not know what the Sabbath is, but the Sabbath in Jewish culture and even in the Christian world is a day of rest. And we celebrate that day of rest largely because Jesus celebrated it and because God instituted it all the way back in the very beginning of the book of Genesis. He created for 6 days, and on the seventh day, he rested. So the entire Jewish culture shut down. The Jewish slaves shut down, the Jewish servants shut down, the Jewish animals, the Jewish people. Everybody stopped doing everything, and people would gather in synagogues, and religious leaders would get up and they would teach from a specific text. And usually the men would gather around the outer rim of the synagogue, and one man would stand up and they would read and they would teach, and then another one would stand up, and it was a whole day affair, okay? But the truth is that there was all of these really rigid rules that surrounded the Sabbath day. There was a certain amount of paces that you could walk outside. There were certain things you could do and you couldn't do. You weren't allowed to weave. You weren't allowed to bake. You weren't allowed to knead. You weren't allowed to feed. You weren't allowed to do this. You weren't allowed to do that. There was all of these things that you weren't allowed to do. And so this day of rest, what it was supposed to be, was a time for restoration for the people of Israel, a time to take a break. But what it ended up becoming was, can you imagine like on your day off, you have to count your steps, but you don't get a Fitbit to do it? Like imagine on your day off, it's like, wow, we have to plan every week for our day off because I'm not allowed to knead dough today. I can't weave anything. Not that you're weaving anything anyway. I understand that. But whatever it is that you're doing in life, like you can't do any of those things. And if you do any of them, like you'll get in trouble. Can you imagine the anxiety that would be in your chest every time you had a day off? If you knew that every week when I had this day off, there's going to be people breathing down my neck and watching me to make sure I didn't take too many steps outside today, to make sure I didn't work too hard, to make sure I didn't pick up anything too heavy. It would be a very nerve-wracking experience. And the common Jewish person, many of them didn't even know all of sort of the minutia of the law and the nuances of it. And so, and most of it wasn't even in the Bible. It was created by the Jewish ruling class in order to create a separation between the religious elite and the commoner. It was a way to create the separation where the religious elite were pious and better than everybody else. And they had this honored position inside of culture because they could look down on everybody else. And the Sabbath day was one of the key ways that happened. So they're looking at Jesus and a man with a shriveled hand comes in. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't even do the research because it's not super important here and I didn't want to get into it. But there was something in the process of the healing, whether it was Jesus saying, stretch out your hand, or it was a man actually stretching out his hand. I don't know what it was, but there was something in the process of healing of this man that would cause cause Jesus or this man to break the Sabbath law. And so this man comes up and the Jews kind of wait with bated breath. Would Jesus heal this guy on the Sabbath? Because guys, so much of religion is about trying to figure out who is out and who is in. The rules of religion are largely about trying to figure out who is out and who is in. And we do this in the church all the time. right? If you want to be in with us, that's fine, but you kind of got to dress like we dress. You kind of got to talk like we talk. You kind of got to sort of, be on our level. You got to get a haircut. You can't have those tattoos. You can't look like that. You have to believe these specific things. And I'm not saying that truth and specific beliefs aren't important, because they are. They're very important and very central to proper doctrine and understanding of who God is. But so much of man-made rules and man-made religion is not about people coming to know Jesus or following Jesus. It's about trying to decide who is in and who is out. And so in this moment, they're looking at Jesus and they're seeing if he's going to heal this man. And they're wondering, is he in or is he out? Can we vote him out? Can we say he's not the real deal? And Jesus looks at them and he says, what is better to do on the Sabbath, on this day of rest, on this Lord's day? Is it better to do good or to do evil? Save a life or to kill? And the Pharisees are silent, and Jesus becomes frustrated. And the reason is because they know the answer. They know that they have neglected the more important aspects of God, of mercy and of love and of grace and of compassion, and they have substituted that for the rules of men. Because it's easier to follow the rules of men than it is to walk in faith with God. Religion is rigid and easy. The rhythms and the patterns of Jesus are hard. And Jesus becomes frustrated and he says, stretch out your hand. And the man is healed. And the religious leaders are so infuriated because they're embarrassed that they try to come up with a way to kill him. Because guess what? In that moment, they're able to say, he is out. Religion helps us determine who is in and who is out. The rhythms of Jesus help us to draw closer to the heart of God and to understand who Jesus is and to build our relationship with him. The ultimate truth is they didn't trust Jesus. And so they chose to try to control him instead. They sort of got together with this group of people called the Herodians, which is outrageous, by the way, because the Herodians were Jews who had aligned with Herod, who was the Roman appointed ruler over the Jews, and the Jews largely hated Herod. The Herodians would have oftentimes been considered betrayers to their own people, and the Pharisees were the exact opposite of that. But the Pharisees also knew that there was no way to kill or execute Jesus without the approval of the Romans. And so they began working with the Jewish Roman sympathizers, the Herodians, in order to find a way to execute Jesus. They're willing to go to their enemies to find a way to silence him, because we always control what we do not trust. So all of this happens, right? Jesus heals this man. They tried to control him. They decide they're going to kill him. Like, fine. But who cares? Like, honestly, why does it matter? It's a fun story, and we talked about it. But how does that actually apply to our lives? So what? Well, here at Lux, one of our devotions is to live like Jesus. And Rhythm is Greater Than Religion is about that. Rhythm is Greater Than Religion is about that. Hey, Greg, there's a book over here, sitting over here about spiritual discipline somewhere. Could you find it and bring it over to me? It's by Dallas Willard. It's not a big book, and it has a green cover. It might be on my desk. And as we were looking at the rhythms in the last series about prayer and Bible study and about fasting, these sort of central and important devotions to becoming like Jesus. Hey, thank you for the opportunity to buy followers. Someone want to ban that person for me? I began to realize how important it was that we actually live out the things that Jesus said that we need to live out. That we actually need to model our lives after the person of Jesus. That it was actually important for us to begin doing the things that Jesus did. Because religion in the end is about creating a list of rules so that we feel we have some level of control in our relationship with God. Because man is continually in a state of trying to be the one in the driver's seat. If you look even from the book of Genesis, it's really clear from the very beginning that man was not content to be under God. Man didn't want to be created. Man has always desired to be the creator. Don't worry about it, Greg. It's not here. And so it's always been a problem for us. And religion is oftentimes our way of boxing God in and saying, this is who you are and you can go no further. Rhythms and spiritual rhythms and following the ways of Jesus and actually living out our faith, not just intellectual assent to an idea or a set of concepts, but actually practically living it out in our day-to-day life is what true faith looks like. And oftentimes we've sort of gotten this wrong in the church. It's been about perfect church attendance and going to Sunday school or whatever. And I've been there. I've done that, like perfect small group attendance, whatever it might be. And it hasn't been actually about practically living out our faith. Like we attend church, we hear the sermons, we read our Bible a little bit, we do all of the right, the things that we're told to do. But when it comes to actually actively living like Jesus lived and living in the patterns and the rhythms that Jesus lived in, so often we just seem to fall short. We think in some way, shape, or form, it's okay for us to say, I'm a follower of Jesus, but then have our lives look nothing like Jesus. You can't say you're a follower of Jesus and then not do anything that Jesus said to do. You can't say, I'm a Christian, and then make no attempt to, religious activity is not going to cut it. Like one day we'll stand face to face with God and we'll say, I came to church every week. I was in church all the time. And it's not going to be it. It's not going to cut it. It's not about attendance, and it's not about following the right rules. It's about living and chasing after Jesus with every aspect that we are. Because rhythm is always greater than religion. Religion and rules will always seek to separate, to divide, to put down, and to control. But the rhythms of following in Jesus' footsteps, in living as he lived and doing the things that he did, will always help us to connect with God and reach others. That's why here at Lux, I love church history, guys. I'm big on proper theology. Those things are important to me. And there is truth in our world. And it's important that we live as Jesus lived and we actually live out truth in love. In love. It's important that we do those things. But it's also important that we actually model our life after Jesus, not just do religious things. And so it's so important to me, and it's such a deep conviction on my heart, that as part of our church, we don't just come and listen to talks or sermons. We don't just go, but we actually grow and we develop as a group of people, that we actually become better followers of Jesus, practically, actually in our day-to-day life. We pray more. We fast better. We listen to God's voice closer. We walk closer with him. We're marked by love and compassion. We treat people as though they have dignity and as though they're made in his image, despite the fact that maybe they frustrate us or are very different than us or believe things that are different than what we believe. It's important to me that we treat people like Jesus would have treated them. It's important to me that we're a group of people who actually model our lives after Jesus because we claim that we follow Jesus, which takes us probably to our next step this week. And I probably missed something. We're probably going to go on to slide 7 here, Johnny. I got a little sidetracked there, but our next step this week is this. I will devote myself to the rhythms of Jesus instead of the religion of men. The rules of religion are our human reaction to not being able to trust God, to putting God in a box, to not being able to truly be in deep relationship with him. Instead, we would like to keep God at arm's length because we can't see him and he's unpredictable, so we can't trust him. So we create a religious system that we can feel comfortable in and rules that we can operate within. We can pull the levers and we can decide who's out and we can decide who's in and we can hang out with who we want. But if we want to be like Jesus, Jesus spent so much time with drunks and partiers and prostitutes that it was actually believed that he was a drunk and a glutton. If we want to live like Jesus and be followers of Jesus, we actually have to go to where Jesus went and live out our lives with the people that Jesus lived his life out with. We actually have to pick up our Bible and we have to study it. In the book that I was going to quote from tonight, I actually put the quote in Discord, so you can find it under quotes in our Discord, but it comes from Dallas Willard, and he basically says this: a baseball player who shows up to the game but does not practice, a baseball player who shows up to the game but doesn't actually practice for the game is no more ludicrous. That concept is no more ludicrous than the Christian who believes that they'll just be able to figure it out and be able to live like Christ without actually practicing living like Christ. Being a follower of Jesus takes practice and patience. And there's a link in the chat right now for a book, and the book is called The Common Rule. This book, and this might be a better next step for you. Maybe you can pick up a copy of this book and grab it tonight. I know I'm a little bit over on time. We're going to end here in 1 second. Maybe you can pick up a copy of this book tonight, and it's on Amazon. There's a link there in the chat. The Common Rule is applying some of these sort of rhythms of Jesus to 2022. It is 4 daily common rule. Common rule literally means sort of like a pattern to live your life after, a rhythm to live your life in. There's 4 daily ones and 4 weekly ones, and they involve around screens, relationship, your phone, that sort of stuff. It's a really powerful book. It's written by a lawyer who had a mental breakdown. Through that mental breakdown, he discovered some of these common monastic traditions and rhythms that he's implemented in his life, and it's helping him to live out and become more like Jesus. It's something that we really need. It's a great book, and it's a fast read. It's an incredible book. And so if you're saying, like, this really hits home with me, and I've been a person who's tried to control God with the rules of religion. I've been someone who really likes to know who's in and who's out. I haven't been so concerned with following Jesus as I have been with making sure that I was doing the right things and checking the right boxes and being a good Christian. And like, I'm done with that. Like, I actually want to live like Jesus. Like, I want to take this seriously. It's not just about coming to church for me anymore. That's not enough for me. It's not just about checking the right boxes for me. That's not enough for me. I actually want to see the things that the first people of the Bible saw. I actually want to see people healed. I actually want to see people delivered. I actually want to experience the promises and the peace that Jesus promises to those who will follow him. I actually want that in my life. You have to follow. You have to reject the religion of men, and you have to pick up and carry by faith the rhythms of Jesus. Let's pray. Father God, I love you and I thank you, and I thank you that, what was supposed to be said isn't always what was said, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful, Father, for this amazing team of people that we have around us, and I thank you that the core of our team and our people are here to hear not just a message or worship, but they can hear the core of who we are. They can know that we're going to seek to be a light in every dark place, that we're not going to shy away nor hide. We're going to expose our light to every dark place that we can, to know that for us, we'll always think of the lost person above the 99 who are found, because that lost person, if they die, will go to hell. And that's not okay with us. We're convicted and driven by that. And I pray that they would know that we're not going to settle for the religion and the religious practices of men that help us control people, manipulate people, and to consolidate power. But we will carry the humble cross of Jesus Christ. And we will walk in the careful and daily rhythms that he walked in. And that we will walk with our Father. Patience and compassion and love and humility. That we will seek not to be a good religious group, but to be a group of people who are truly seeking after and following Jesus. I know that you're knocking on the hearts of some people tonight who've accepted religion, but they have some part of their life who they have not submitted or handed over to you so that they can actually follow you. I believe that there are people in chat tonight who are holding on to something who are not all in. And you can't be half into following Jesus. You're either in or you're not in. There's not one foot in and one foot out. I pray that whoever needs to hear this prayer tonight, that you would convict their heart, Father, and that you would help them to let go of whatever it is that they're keeping out of your grasp. Allow them to surrender to you and to dive in and follow your Son. We pray these things in your name, Lord. Amen.